All right, welcome to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Breitman. Not exactly a rapid reaction, coming to you about, an hour and a half after Rutgers loses to number 22 Iowa, 22-0. Had a lot going on today and tonight, and honestly, it was when your team loses like this, it takes you a while to. I wanted to kind of just think about it, but also, you know, it's kind of a joke, but kind of not. When your team is outcoached by Brian Ferentz that much, really makes you reevaluate your life in a way that you never imagined. So yeah, it was brutal. It was there's no mincing words. Rutgers was outcoached, they were outplayed, they were out toughed and outclassed by Iowa in every way. No bones about it, and extremely disappointing. We all hoped this would be the next step and they'd be able to, it's been 14 years since they beat a ranked team. They've never beaten a Big Ten team with a winning record. And you really hope that those marks would be achieved this weekend. And I mean, I honestly if you looked at this game anything more than 50-50 in terms of Rutgers having a chance to win, you got your hopes up. I think truly a credit to Iowa. Like I think they are one of the toughest teams, bar none, year after year, simply because you have to be that good in terms of consistent winning program, 8, 9, 10 wins. Yes, they play in the Big Ten West, but they win the West a lot. They always go to good bowl games. They haven't had a good offense in a long time. And to be able to win that way and to keep your team together. I mean, they're a tough team. And it really showed tonight. I thought that they out tough Rutgers in every way. Now I do think, and I got a lot of heat for this on Twitter, and people, are angry, and I get it. But it's not a one note thought, in the sense of there's a lot of reasons, and we're going to get into it. But one thought I have is, and I kind of mentioned it during the week on here, is that I was worried that the Ohio State loss would take a toll on Rutgers that would negatively impact this game. A mental toll, a physical toll, an emotional toll. And I honestly think it did. I'm not saying that's the sole reason they lost. I'm not saying it's the primary reason they lost, but I do think it was a factor. I don't think they were as physical today against Iowa as they were Ohio State. I don't think the defense was. The defense got a raw deal, of course. The offense did not help them one bit. It's just so classically Rutgers that the defense, as good as they've been all year, the first 40+, the last team in the country to give up a 40+ yard play is Rutgers, and they give it up against Iowa, the worst offense in the country. Iowa, over 400 yards of total offense. I mean, it's like a bad dream. And you have to credit Brian Ferentz. I mean, he completely outcoached Rutgers. Their game plan offensively, I mean, it was good. They mixed things up. Shiraka had no creativity. I don't even understand. It's not even creativity, but like Wimsatt had one carry going into the fourth quarter. Now, part of that was him being hesitant and not taking a couple reads I thought he could have run with. The whole thing was just, it left a lot to be desired. But I do think that the physical toll that Ohio State took more than anything certainly was some percentage of a factor today, because the offensive line. I mean, that's the thing. Like when you play sports and in life, right? When you're physically not 100%, right? You start to make mental mistakes. And Rutgers had, was it 5 false starts? 5 false starts. And I think that was part of it. I think the offensive line, they did not have the push, the physicality. They were not the same the way they were against Ohio State, and it's the loss is not all on them, but obviously Rutgers could not run the same way that they were able to against Ohio State. But I just think that those are the types of things I look for, and yes, the home crowd at Kenneck is crazy. But I think that they were, just not at the same level. And I think it's direct relation to having that type of game. You go up against the number one team in the country, you give it everything you have. Playing Ohio State always takes a physical toll on Rutgers, I feel like. And, they were a little banged up coming in this game. Monungai was questionable. Lang was questionable. There was certainly, who knows what Monungai is dealing with. And I haven't listened to Shiana's press conference, so I don't know if he said anything, but, and then he left after that block that he took and was pretty banged up. So, I mean, this team, here we are. I mean, we're getting to the end of November, and I think this game probably, this Rutgers is going to be dealing with some stuff. I don't know. I'm not, alluding to any specific injuries. I just think back-to-back really tough games is going to take its toll. And then now you're going to Penn State, who's going to be angry after this Michigan loss. So it's a tough slide. I think we all hoped they would skip a step in the sense of, or I guess maybe skip the period it typically takes to take another step, right? They took the one step that they had to take, and that's to become bowl eligible. And they did it with flying colors. And by the way, Northwestern won today. They beat Wisconsin. If only Rutgers had played Wisconsin without Tanner Mordecai, that could have been a much different scenario. And Virginia Tech routed Boston College today. So both of those teams have 5 wins. So they're 1 win away from going to a bowl game. So those wins look even better for Rutgers. And but they achieved bowl eligibility. And I think we all hoped after going to 6-2 with the way the schedule laid out that they could at least win one more game and get to a winning record. First time since 2014. Get to a better bowl. And get it maybe even like this week, hoping to get a signature win. Their best win since going in the Big Ten. And, it's rare that things work out that way. It's rare to skip a step in terms of the time it takes. And that's what would have happened if Rutgers won tonight. And they didn't. And they didn't come close. And I think that is where the frustration, the anger, the upsetness comes from, is that they weren't even close. And that makes it, a hard pill to swallow. And I get that. I feel the same way, So I thought the play calling offensively, again, it really, I thought Wimsatt looked good in the first half. I thought he was sharp, and I didn't understand. I think, I think it was David Anderson and I that talked about this. I felt like I was worried the game plan was going to be basically to just get to the fourth quarter, hoping that, you hadn't made any killer mistakes. It was a 1-score game, and then you're going to go for it, in some way, or hope along the way that Iowa makes that critical mistake. Iowa didn't make any critical mistakes. I think they don't get enough credit. They've been in a ton of these games, right? They've been in a ton of close games, and Rutgers has not. And they were, it was 6-0 game going into the fourth quarter, and it fell apart. So there's that. But I think that there was opportunities in the first half to be more aggressive offensively, and they didn't take it. Those false starts were killers. There were a couple drives, they're in around the 45 yard line of Iowa, and the false starts killed them. 2 separate drives that I can recall. And I just thought that throwing Wimsatt more in the first half, he was actually looking, I thought, pretty good. And I know everybody wants to blame him and say everything. And yes, he's not good enough. That's not really debatable. That's not what I've ever said. Like he's not at the level they need him to be. He's better than he was. He's not where they need him to be to win these types of games. I don't think that's really debatable or profound to say. But I don't think it's like Rutgers plays it so conservative. And then when they're down 2 scores or they're only in passing situations, they just it's like you just, okay, Gavin, like, here you go, carry the load. And I just don't think it works that way. How many times did Rutgers throw on first down tonight? I have to look it up, but it didn't seem like a lot. There was a lot of third downs, that 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 they ran. Again, I didn't understand why they didn't have any more design play calls to run Wimsatt. So yeah, Wimsatt kind of fell apart there in the second half, but I don't think the play calling did him any favors. I think that they failed to establish a rhythm with him. I think the 21 play calls in the first half, I think it was. 13 were run, which we knew they were going to try to run, but it wasn't working. And I just think when you put him in all passing downs, right, passing situations, it's he's not good enough to overcome that. When defenses are just expecting the pass because Rutgers is down 2 scores, it raises the bar in terms of the challenge he has. And if it's a trust thing, I don't know, but it was a big problem tonight. And again, just to be clear, because I get a lot of heat, people say I'm too nice on Wimsatt. I love his upside. I think that he has made some throws this year that we haven't seen from a Rutgers quarterback in a long time. But yes, he hasn't been good enough in these types of moments where if they're going to take that next level, he hasn't been up to the challenge. So I think that's fair to say. I think it's pretty obvious. And, I just think that you go back to the coaching, and I think they played not to lose. And they were hoping for Iowa to make mistakes. And, Iowa has so much experience in these games, and they did not make mistakes. The interception at the end of the half, that's the lone exception. That was a great play by Max Melton. That saved them going into the half. But those false starts were killer. Just seeing if I missed anything in terms of what I wanted to hit on. But I think that's it. I think that's the disappointment, the anger. It's because we just thought that Rutgers had a real shot. Again, I mean, I was getting comments during the week, people saying, they'd be shocked if Rutgers lost. I never understood that. I think you're highly underestimating Iowa. Easy to say now, but really, I mean, and the fact that they just came up so empty, got shut out, fell apart at the end. The defense, I think it's the most passing yards Iowa's had in at least 12 games. So it's just, it's tough. It's tough. It's a miserable loss. But the bottom line is this: like, they have made the progress they had to make. We all wanted them to make more progress, and they proved they're not ready. And Sean was talked about not yet, not yet, not yet. Well, no one was yet tonight. And I think the coaching staff has to take, a huge part of that in terms of the blame, because Rutgers wasn't able to rise to the challenge. And it's not like you lost 16-13. I mean, it wasn't close. Yes, it was 6-0 going in the fourth, but once they got that touchdown, it was pretty much, it was hard to envision things turning around so quickly. But the fact that it just never did, is it was very disappointing. And the bottom line is you're going to Penn State next week. It's going to be a really tough game. And then you have Maryland last game of the season. So that's going to be at home. And that's still a winnable game in my mind for sure. They beat Nebraska today. They're bowl eligible now. So that's going to be a huge game. And Rutgers still has a chance. Maryland's not on the level of Iowa, and people like to make fun of Iowa, but Iowa's a better program for sure, and I mean, that Iowa defense, someone tweeted at me, Iowa's not even good. I mean, Iowa has an elite defense and elite special teams. They have a bad offense, and that offense looked good tonight. So that's a recipe for disaster. And, but, listen, Rutgers could still beat Maryland and have a winning season. And that would be another kind of half a step forward in a time frame that you wouldn't necessarily expect it all to happen at once. So, you're going to a bowl game. That's another opportunity for a win. This team can still go 8-5. They can. It would have been awesome to go 8-4 and 5-4 in the Big Ten, but it's most likely not in the cards now. And again, that's kind of a nice to have. People started to expect it, and think it. And so I think part of that is our mindset in terms of how maybe some misread the signs. I think that this team is good enough to beat teams on paper that they're even with or better than, and teams that, are established. And, everybody, Iowa is kind of the model for what you hope Rutgers becomes, just in terms of their model consistency, the level they recruit at, their identity with defense. It's and Shiano was asked about it this week, and he said, something to the effect of, I hope so. And Ferentz was really complimentary to Shiano this week. But Um, Rutgers is not at the level of Iowa, and they proved that tonight. And it's going to take more time than people want it to take, but that's just the reality, and that's where we're at. And so gutting loss, very disappointing, on every level. And at the same time, perspective is needed, and the season is still a success no matter what you slice it. It's just very disappointing. Rutgers wasn't able to take another step forward, but there's still chances to take other steps, and that's beat Maryland, have a winning record, and win the bowl game. And that would still be multiple steps forward in one season, and it's still on the table. And this team is mentally tough too, and I think they'll bounce back from this. And I think that's what you have to have faith in. I think anything over than that, these there's a lot of knee jerk reactions, but I hope everybody maybe takes a moment, sleeps on it, has a beer, whatever. Rutgers isn't a top 5 Big Ten team, but they're working their way towards there, and it'll be really. I think the goal is to start winning games like this next year, and it didn't happen tonight, and it wasn't close, and that's pretty much the deal. Thank you for listening and watching here at the Scarlet Faithful once again.